Hello and welcome to the Regular Man Podcast, where we celebrate God's gift of masculinity in the life of the regular man. I'm your host, Steve Cruz, and this is episode 11 of season 2 of the Regular Man Podcast. Today, my guest is a Christian husband, father, businessman, one of our friends of a good friend of mine, good business buddy of Tate Taylor. He was at the Fight, Laugh, Feast conference last year, where I met him, and I was totally unprepared. I should have interviewed him, but I just didn't. I totally blew it on a lot of guys who I should have interviewed at the Fight, Laugh, Feast. It was just a lot. It was just too much for me to handle. He's also the co-founder of BeRegenerated.com and the co-host of the podcast, Be Regenerated. And he's going to be talking about biblical nutrition and what we can learn from the Bible and how we can live a regenerated life. Please welcome Cameron Weedle. Cameron, my man, thanks for coming on, brother.
Thank you, Steve. It's great to be here with you. And I also want to say thanks for the constant encouragement and shout outs. You're one of my favorite guys on Twitter because you're just like, hey, let's win and let's support each other. So we need a lot more of that.
Yeah, I totally dig it, man. I'm a super tiny account. I've got 1,000 or 1,100 followers or something on. I've got 50 people, 5 people on my 4th YouTube account. So I'm not sure how much reach I have. A lot more reach on the audio content, but not so much on the socials. I think that there's still some of that swamp thing.
Yeah. Well, I can learn a lot from you. I definitely believe more in the podcast side of it, the long form side of it. So yeah.
Yeah, I really dig. I'm not a TikTok kind of fella. I don't like the short term, scrolling, swipe left, swipe right kind of thing. I really like to sit down and whether I'm driving or I'm working out or I'm working on the car, I like to listen or watch a podcast and so that's what I enjoy. So that's what I do. And I've really enjoyed your podcast too. I just maybe 4 months ago, I started listening to it. Once the Prodigal America conference finished, and I was like, I gotta look these guys up. I looked them up, and then one of the interviews that you had, or not interviews, one of the episodes that you had, really stuck with me. The daily do's and don'ts, and I want to go into that. But first, I want everybody to know who you are, kind of how you got to this point, why you started the podcast, why you started this community of Be Regenerated, and then how you met Tate.
Yeah. Well, I got into nutrition back in 2000, I would say 2010. I was doing a gap year program at a place called Hume Lake. Beautiful, beautiful place. Got introduced to Reformed theology there. And, but my health was tanking. I had been diagnosed with chronic fatigue right out of high school. And that explained just some of my struggles with, doing early morning and afternoon sports. I was a highly competitive swimmer, did state championships multiple years. And it just started to get really bad in college. And I knew that there was some link with nutrition, but I didn't know how deep it was. I took a nutrition class in junior college. It was totally lame. It was like a medical doctor that taught it. And when I was in this program, a gentleman came from South Africa, and he had helped the director of the program who was dealing with some health issues. And so he invited him to come do a basic nutrition course. And he just came and said, hey, these are the things that make the body work. And that really blew my mind because my mom's a nurse. I had been interested in the medical field, and it was just this click where we know how the body works very intricately, more than ever in history, right? But we don't know what makes it work. My mom literally said that to me in a call when I was talking with her, because I was told by the doctors, there's no medical solution. It's just going to get worse. Basically, your ability to produce testosterone, your cellular energy, that's all just going to fail over time. And same thing with I had tore my meniscus my senior year in water polo. And so, that's just a huge bummer. And when you struggle to wake up and have energy in the morning, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do for a living, let alone have a family and be able to provide for them. But this same gentleman, he had terminal leukemia. And wow. I started going to but he was totally fine at this point. So I started going to his house during the summer when I was working as a lifeguard for his Tuesday night Bible studies. And he would always make us a home cooked meal, which when you're living at a camp, it's just, amazing. And then he would make us a smoothie, and I would wake up the next morning with energy. And so I knew that there was something that he was giving us. And I had done fresh fruit and vegetable juicing in the past, and knew a little bit about that. So he let me start doing that. I got over like my chronic cold, but I knew that there was something that he was giving me. And he was like, well, I'm giving you a protein powder that has all 22 amino acids by the people who invented protein powder. And then he just started to teach me nutrition and really welcomed me into his family and explained how, he went from terminal leukemia, basically, being written off to die, given 6 months to live, maybe a few weeks when he had a little baby girl. And he completely changed his diet, but then he also, got rid of all of the junk synthetic supplements he was taking. He started juicing fresh fruits and vegetables, and then he took the right stuff. So basically, when he came to the United States, he just realized that compared to other countries in the world where it's like, if you have something and you're in a poor country and it doesn't work, like people don't buy it because they don't have money. And if you're in a lot of other countries that have European standards or, like Japan, Australia, they're very strict in what they allow. And they actually have a lot better definitions for what actually constitutes food, right? Even Mexico and China reject genetically modified foods and stuff like that. So although we just forced Mexico to take it recently at the tail end of the Biden administration, basically under the threat of a gun. But so I really latched onto him. I learned and I started getting healthier. And then I particularly started taking something called TreaNN, which are the healthy fats from whole grains. And that was actually when I actually looked at the research and I started feeling better. It was done in a hospital study on chronic fatigue, which is what I had. So all God's providence, I get better. I go to Africa for 4 months and he told me what to do because he's from Africa. I'm like the only one on my team who doesn't get sick. Everything's fine. At one point I did get sick from taking doxycycline. I didn't get sick, but it's like supposedly an anti-malarial medication you're supposed to take. And I didn't drink enough water and it basically burned a hole in my esophagus. Ooh. So I couldn't eat food for like 2 weeks. It hurt to drink water, but I had that shake with me, and people in Africa knew about it because this organization, this company is really big in Africa. They helped probably millions of people. And so that really clicked for me that this is a huge issue. And when I go back home, I need to take it seriously. So over the next couple of years, I just started taking nutrition courses wherever I could. At the time, I was able to take courses online from Stanford, UCSF. I just started swallowing everything I could, but under the guidance of these same friends who were in the creation-oriented, still clinical proof, all that kind of stuff. And then particularly a gentleman named Jim McAfee. He went to undergrad with Greg Bahnsen. He went to Dallas Theological Seminary, but he did his dissertation on fasting because of his own health issues in the largest allergy institute in the world. It was in Texas at the time. And they actually have an event this weekend that guy's speaking at. I won't be able to make it to, but he basically looked at all the health benefits of fasting and was just blown away that this is just a practice in scripture and what it does for the body, how it changes allergies, but then also looking into the chemicals and everything that we're bringing into our food. So he's kind of been beating that drum for years. And he also is, I don't know if he's still on the board, but for a long time, he was on the board of ICANN, who basically writes the exams for clinical nutritionists, which if I was going to go into the field, that's the field I would go into. And my favorite guys to read their books are clinical nutritionists. And that kind of sounds like super academic and heavy and like regimented, but they basically are looking at like the data in real time of somebody's health statistics and then working through step by step, healing that person and rebuilding them. They're very holistic. So that's basically my background. I interned under him for a while and learned from him, and a lot of my biblical nutrition content, I was inspired by him. I took some of his newsletters from like the 70s and 80s, and then I just dove deeper and built on that. And just an amazing guy. I'll interview him at some point on the podcast, but that was kind of my journey into it. And then over time, I worked myself out of just through recommending the same supplements that had helped me, as people were like, hey, like, why do you feel better? And then changing my diet, people were asking me like, how do you juice? How do you do all this kind of stuff? And over time, it became, as I had a few other friends that it helped, where they were like, let's look into doing this as a business so that we can go into the missions field and be self-funded. And I eventually worked myself out of my video production business. I filmed weddings. And then also I was a manager at Starbucks, which when I came back from Africa the second time, I hated the drive-through culture. There was a lot of things about America that really frustrated me. When you go to Africa and you spend time in an Eastern culture for a while, for all the things that people complain about, like they are a joyful, happy, satisfied, like relatively healthy and contented people compared to us. They're not complainers, and it's just a different world. So when I came back, I wanted to quit Starbucks for sure. And I was like, I don't want to sell diabetes anymore through the drive-through. We worked next to a hospital, so all the hospital staff, while they're smoking cigarettes and drive-through, coming through. And so it just opened my eyes, like what shift needed to happen. And then I was kind of on a seminary path, and at my church that I was going to in Northern California, in OPC. And then I met my wife, and my pastor, just a great man to his credit, said, you need to become qualified as a husband and a father and provide for your family. So take a break and do that. And I did. And I've stayed in the nutrition field since my wife and I got married and worked her out of her job, and now we have 4 little boys, and that's our story.
Nice. Now, you said chronic fatigue. What does that mean? Because I feel like that's a kind of a blanket statement just to encompass a whole lot of things that the doctors just can't answer.
Originally, it was really it was more focused on mitochondrial function. So mitochondria is the energy, the engine of your cell, essentially, of your cells. And there's a few other components to it, but it was characterized by low testosterone, basically bad hormone function, and the inability of your cells to produce energy, ATP, in the mitochondria. So magnesium would play a role in that, a lot of different nutrients. But over time, it has become an umbrella blanket diagnosis for a lot of stuff, like depression or something. Chronic fatigue syndrome is now officially what it's called. I typically don't say chronic fatigue syndrome, number one, because I don't take on a medical condition as identity. I think that's a problem in our society. But then also because it's so broad, like I've been a part of some chronic fatigue syndrome groups online, and every now and then I'll have somebody and I'll just, trickle a little bit and try to see who, like, probe and see who's open to finding a solution. And until COVID, that was pretty rare. People just, they wanted the identity. They wanted to wait for some miracle cure, which will never happen because ultimately it's a lack of nutrients, and you can't chemical replace those things that God originally made that we've taken out. So, but by and large, in those groups, people they're not really looking for they don't believe that it can actually be fixed and that they're missing something natural. They are looking to a false god, in my view. And so there have been a number of people. There's a bunch of people in the organization, the nutrition organization that I'm in, that had chronic fatigue diagnosis as well. Some of them, most of them older than me. And it completely went away. And the cool thing is the main thing that helped me with that was actually done on a hospital study on chronic fatigue when it was first discovered in the 50s. And they named it that because it was unexplainable by any other metric. But it was basically the dawn of heavy processing of our main food sources. And so, that's what it was given originally. And it's morphed over time, like everything else.
What are the symptoms of, like, if I'm just waking up and I'm just tired, and maybe I did get a good amount of sleep. Maybe I got 6, 7, maybe even 8 hours of sleep if I went to bed super duper early. Like, what is the difference between just being tired and dragging your rear for a week versus chronic fatigue syndrome?
I would say that is a milder form, but it slowly progresses of those same root issues that almost everyone has, particularly men. So it affects women as well, but like you can't sleep your way out of not getting enough nutrients to repair your body. The reason that we sleep is so that our body can go into deep repair and essentially regenerate all the stuff that needs it and then heal you. There's so many things that happen. And if you don't have those repair materials, your body will actually wake you up. So you'll get poor quality sleep. This is something I think is really good for a lot of guys to just actually get something temporarily. Like I'm right now, I'm trying out something called Whoop. I don't love having devices on me all the time. I'm kind of minimalist with that, but it's good for a period of time to track your sleep and see what's going on. And if you just don't get good sleep, the quantity is not as important as the quality. So you want that deep sleep to be able to repair, but your body is so smart. It will literally just wake itself up because it knows it can't do that job, and you need to go get those nutrients. Same thing with when you're hungry. You can eat chips and all this kind of stuff and be like, man, I'm still hungry. Like, why am I hungry? I had white bread and everything. Well, it's because it had no nutrients, and your body is trying to tell you, give me nutrients. And then we give it empty calories. So chronic fatigue, I think the vast majority of people would suffer under the umbrella symptoms of that. But when you get to the level where your cells are just completely not working, I think that is more of a rare condition. It's becoming more common as time goes on. But yeah, if you're just really, honestly, if you feel chronically fatigued, then you probably have a mild form of chronic fatigue. It's not that complex. So and it seems like something that you would want to come at from a lot of angles, but it's honestly just a handful of nutrients. It's like chelated minerals that your body can absorb, not rocks, which is the majority of supplements because it's legal to do that. The oils from whole grains, first food we started processing. And, of course, everyone is like anti-grain because they don't understand that. And they're not getting them from the right ones. And then the other healthy fats, and then all the protein, all the amino acids we need. I'm always blown away when people come to me and they're like, what about this protein? What about this protein? But they don't understand what protein is. Protein is just a combination. Acids. Yeah, it's just a combination, right? So they might get their essential amino acids or something, but God's blueprint in nature is 22 amino acids for humans. It's in all mammals' milk. So it just makes sense. And the company that I work with from the beginning, they've always made it that way, and they're still the only ones doing it, which is just kind of baffling because the information's out there. It's like,
what company is that?
It's called Neolife, Neolife. Yep.
Like Matrix Neo.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the guy who named it was a believer, and he called it Neolife, which is just the Greek word neo, so new life. Because what happened was his wife was in that chronic fatigue study at Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital. She had rheumatoid arthritis, and she was just so crippled up. That was a pretty new disease at the time as well. Mm-hmm. And she was in this study on women's hormones. And one of the hilarious things about that study is like a symptom that the doctors gave was that the women didn't want to be around their husbands, which is like, that's like just a common.
Every pregnant woman I've ever met in my life suffers from that.
It's like a man joke right now, husband joke right now, right? But back then it was still kind of like, that's kind of unusual. So his wife got into that study, and there was a guy who had basically started taking the oils that they were throwing away now that they were processing grains differently, and he was curing gangrene with vitamin E from wheat germ. He was doing all kinds of really amazing stuff, and he was just going and getting the throwaway product that they were feeding to the animals at the time. So he was invited to look into this study. Mind you, this is like before big pharmaceuticals. This is like the 50s, right? This is like, before big medicine. So they did this study, and they administered these oils to the women, and within 3 weeks they were all fine. And this guy's wife was totally cured of her rheumatoid arthritis. Well, she leaves the study, and within a couple of weeks, she starts regressing. So he knew that he needed to get a hold of that. So he basically bought the rights to the formula, even though it's not patented because it's just food nutrients. That's why GMOs are a thing, because they can be patented because they're different genes from different creatures spliced together. That would never happen naturally. But when it comes to these foods, right, you can't patent soy, like the original soy or whatever. God made it, right? So he basically bought the rights to the formula and this cold pressing technology, and then he built the company out and then sold that as the first ever supplement nutraceutical. And it got really big. And then eventually he sold it to the family that now owns it, who are really close friends of mine, mainly because he didn't believe his son would be a good steward of it, which is accurate because his son went on to basically copy and paste and start the company Muscle Milk, which is a trash product.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, pretty wild story. But this company invented instantization, which is basically protein powder. So every company can thank us for that. They invented so many technologies. It's pretty mind blowing. And they have facilities that are just, they would be worth billions now. And they're commonly offered things like that to be purchased. But they're owned by a family, a Christian family, who is just dedicated to keeping that integrity. And that's why they have zero lawsuits. And we're in countries that have very high standards. We're really well known in a lot of those countries: Australia, Japan, New Zealand. Different countries in Europe. When I was in Uganda, I'll just give you this other quick story. I go to their distribution center there because I was trying to help some friends there that had different health issues, and it was like way bigger than the one in the United States. And I went and talked to their head there, and I said, "Hey, we had this new product come out in the United States. You guys don't have it yet." He said, "No, the government here requires us it needs to be tested for a year before they'll allow the people to take it." And I realized that they had way higher standards than the United States does. You could pick up a bottle of water there, and they make them blue to protect the plastic from basically like degrading under this. Exactly, yeah. And then they would give you mineral content on the bottle of water because they test it. And I noticed that 2 bottles from the same company had different amounts. And so I asked the guy at the bottling plant, why do these say different things on them? That would seem really weird in the United States. And he said, well, because we every 1,000 bottles we release the information, which is not very many bottles in a big operation. So I was just blown away that, like, here's Uganda, not really a third world country anymore, developing nation, but they have way higher standards than the United States. And so that just further solidified my desire to help reform our country, so to speak.
Now, one of the things I heard listening, I think it was a Tucker Carlson podcast. He was talking about how he's really excited about JFK coming RFK, coming into the Trump administration and really cleaning house and really setting higher standards because the food, the water, all this stuff is killing us. And I think unless you're one of the people who believe the CDC and got vaxxed, I mean, it's pretty obvious that food's just killing us. The water's killing us. All this stuff is leaching into everything, and there's no accountability for anything. Right. And one of the things that I found was very interesting was that during the earlier mid 90s with tobacco companies getting all of those lawsuits, by the end of it, when they had to restructure, right, the people who were working for the R&D and the research to make the tobacco products more addictive, all they did was just move to big food.
Yeah.
All they did was just
Yeah.
move to the major food companies, Kellogg's and Pepsi, Coke, and all these things that, and now they reformulate things, and they're always saying our new formula, our new recipe,
Yeah.
the reformulated brand that just makes it more and more addictive. Like sugar itself isn't addictive enough. Then you go to high fructose corn syrup, then you go to modified dextrose, and you go to
Yeah.
all these things that are just like steroids for cancer and diabetes. Is just
Yeah,
ridiculous.
cancer literally eats sugar. That's how they find it in your body.
Yeah.
They inject you with a sugar dye. It races right to the cancer, you know. And then that same doctor won't tell their patient to stop eating sugar.
Right.
It's like, I mean, that you're either stupid or it's malpractice in my view, right? So, yeah, you're totally right, and I think that's why I'm wearing this hat. Like, I think Christians, I wish, understood this better as much as a lot of other people do. But this is the most important thing we could do right now to change our country. And I'll just give you a little bit of an idea behind this, but it'll tease my next episode, which actually should be coming out today. My guys in post on it right now. But I decided to just pivot and talk about fertility starting off the new year, because right now, for basically every 3 children that are conceived, 1 is aborted, as you know, and then 1 doesn't survive the womb. And I just got news from a really close friend today that they had their 2nd miscarriage. I've talked to guys at these conferences. It's like, oh, this just happened again, and it's normal, and we're going to get through it. And it's true. You should have that feeling, but that is unique to our country. And these are guys that, like, some of these guys are eating pretty healthy. Like, they're eating better stuff. So that proves that there's things in our environment, in our bodies, and in our food, and even in small amounts, if we've started eating healthier, that are poisoning us, and those things need to get out. That's why a lot of times after 1 to 3 months of people basically like doing core nutrition, 22 amino acids, that kind of stuff, plugging those gaps, I try to have them do a detox that gets heavy metals out of their body, and other things, because like me and my wife did that before our wedding, because we wanted to be open to having children right away, and that can lead to miscarriage. And sure enough, we got pregnant on our honeymoon, and this was about 9 months after my wife.
IT guy right there.
Yeah, I guess so, right? So going from chronic fatigue to that, it was like, amazing. And my wife was also told she had an irregular cycle, and she was told, you'll have a really hard time getting pregnant and all this kind of stuff. Didn't ever do birth control, praise the Lord, which is another terrible thing. It might be the same Tucker Carlson interview that you're referring to, that they talked about that as well. But yeah, she, within a month, her cycle regulated when I put her on the same stuff that I took, which is, it's what God made. And then the human body takes these real foods, and it makes estrogen in the right ratios in women, and it makes testosterone in the right ratios in men. Like, again, you can't, and then what's the medical industry solution, for women with their hormones, to go give them like horse urine hormones or pig, it's just crazy. So I think we're going to enter a golden age soon, and the stuff that helps you get healthy and regenerate even faster, all these different technologies, they are going to be, they already are heavily decentralized, but they're going to become way more decentralized, less expensive, and way more available. And this is really one of the best times to be alive, especially if we could maintain after this next 4 years. And I think that the most important nomination that Trump currently has is absolutely RFK, because who were the entities, who were the organizations that took us into this hellhole of leading into COVID, right? I lived in California. Our kids, we were going to homeschool them anyways, but you're not allowed to even go to a private school unless they get the full vaccine schedule, which is like, it's like 50 something now in California. We had 5 maybe when we were kids.
Oregon's right behind you, man.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah. Washington as well. Like, that's the only thing that they really try to keep up with your kids here. And I just tell them to take a hike, but like, they want you to, they even bribe you with gift cards to go get your vaccines. It's crazy. So that is the most important nomination, because again, like, people don't understand this. Some people might complain that they don't know if he's fully pro-life or whatever, but he's pro-life more holistically. And why is abortion such a huge industry? It's a money-making industry.
Yep.
And it's because one of the recent Tucker Carlson interviews I would highly recommend, I just listened to the other day, was with a guy named Aaron Siri, who is RFK's lawyer. But he just had his mind open to this when he started doing litigation against some of these companies. But arguably, vaccines of all products are the most ruthlessly demanded and the least evidence-based product that there is in the world, which is, that sounds extreme, but it's totally true. And you listen to that interview and you almost can't walk away from it saying Christians have to be on principle against vaccines almost as an industry, because they all, and this includes pharmaceutical drugs, this includes companies like Pepsi and Coca-Cola with their products, but they literally culture these things and they take specific baby body parts and they pre-plan these abortions. These abortions, they have to know what age the baby is, what health and everything, and they harvest these children. So that industry is so massive, and that's why it's so heavily protected and funded. And we have to, in order to get those things shut down, we have to go to these companies who are using those children, right, for their products. And we also have to say no to the products. So that's one of the reasons why I'm super pumped about RFK, and I pray to God that he does get in.
Now, I also just listened to that episode maybe a week and a half ago. I remember I was done with work and I was driving home. Had to stop at the grocery store, and I parked and I stopped and I just I couldn't turn it off because it was so like I already knew that most of the quote unquote vaccines that we use, including every single one for COVID. This is going to give me another ban on.
It's probably
on
give
YouTube.
Us a strike too. until we crack the whip on YouTube. That needs to happen. I think it will with the FCC guy coming in. But yeah.
It was really eye opening to understand what he was saying about how the vaccine industries, Moderna and J&J and Pfizer and all those people, how they produce their serums and that they inject you with and what they use. And it was so disgusting. I couldn't, it was like a train wreck, watching somebody's head cut off. You couldn't look away,
No, I mean, it's that barbaric and that brutal. I remember my wife was listening to it at the same time I was away working, and I had to, before I left our Airbnb where I was working, I just cried for a minute because it just broke my heart that this is going on right under our noses all the time. And I mean, to kind of get back to some of the broader thing of what we should be focusing on as Christians, like that's what we should be fighting about right now. That's what we should be really angry and upset about and going after. Not these small theological differences that we have, or these,
Who said what?
Yeah, or these things that might be a problem, but like it's not physically, it's not an actual horrendous sin taking place that God is like, hey, these are the things that are the most important to me that I want you to get rid of. So anyways.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. I really did appreciate I think it was a King's Hall episode with Brian Suve, Eric Kahn, and Dan Burkholder, where they were like, hey, no more brother wars. Like there are issues about all kinds of different things, and maybe some of them are legit. Maybe some of them need a conversation, need a discussion. But right now, like we're in a war, man. We're in a war with the devil. And we've got, fortunately, it seems to me like we've got like a 4-year reprieve, or at least slow.
It's a good way to put it.
We've gone into the slow lane on the highway to hell, and it's up to us as Christians to now, okay, stand up, wipe the blood off your nose, dust your jeans off, and get to work. Now is the time that we need to reassess and gather together and group together as brothers. And look at the enemy that's staring right down. Like they're trained on you.
Yeah,
they're shooting you. They're killing you.
Yeah, we're from Oregon, Washington, California. Like they are literally coming after our families here. Like that's
literally.
Yeah.
They are kidnapping your kids. So again, another derailment. They're literally kidnapping your kids if you say my boy is a boy, my girl is a girl.
Yeah,
and I grew up. I'm 44. I still remember when I was growing up and I'm playing, a pickup game of basketball, and there's a girl who wants to play and she's beating the pants off of people because she's just athletically challenged. But she's a girl, athletically.
Still a girl. Yeah.
That's a girl. She knew she was a girl. She just didn't want to play Barbies. She just wanted to throw some elbows and shoot some 3-pointers and say, good game, But she was a girl, and they grow up out of that. There are phases of our life that we different chapters of the book of our life that we're in, and sometimes there's a phase that we're in of you're confused, or maybe you just gravitate towards one thing. I know a coworker of mine, very very not a very feminine woman, but straight as an arrow, has a husband, has a bunch of children. goes to church. She's a Christian, but she doesn't like Gucci. She doesn't like Coach purses. She doesn't like makeup. She puts her hair up and goes to work, and I think that right now we've allowed the government so much control. To your point earlier, we've made the government our daddy, our idol.
Yeah.
We've made the government our God, and we want our medical and dental benefits, and it's a right. It's all these things now that through men's abdication, I would say, through men abdicating their role and the church abdicating their role and leading the charge and being that pillar that people coalesce around, the government whenever there's a power vacuum, something's going to fill that vacuum.
Yeah,
and it's been the government, and you see that through and through in every industry, everywhere in the world, including big food, big pharma, including overreach of government in the elected representatives, quote unquote elected
elected in California and Oregon and Washington. We don't have any way to verify that. But
no, there hasn't been. I know in Oregon there hasn't been a Republican ever since we instituted mail-in ballots. And
California, Washington. I mean, with some exceptions, but like again, and we can say that this is a conspiracy or something, but that like we need to be able to have assurance and security. My wife is an auditor by trade, so she's a CPA, but she worked in audit, and the government makes them audit nonprofits. So a nonprofit that's making X amount of dollars has to hire her firm for tens of thousands of dollars, pay them to prove that their books are all legitimate, right? The government requires that, but if you speak of auditing anything in the government, and then the government, like the Pentagon, could just fail their audits, and there's no recourse. So these are the kinds of things. It's why I'm pumped. Yes, there's a lot of imperfections with Vivek and Elon Musk, but I'm like, yes, like send guys in the private sector, after these companies. Like there's a lot of things that can be done, and I think we're going to be shocked and surprised at how much gets done real quick. There's going to be some backstabbing, as always. There's going to be some different problems, but my prayer is that we don't have this. It was a relatively long period, but that we don't have this. We really need to go after and crush these enemies, because they will come back really quickly.
Yep.
Like it's exactly what happened with Biden. Matt, how bad did it get in his 4 years after 4 pretty decent years under Trump? It can go bad really quickly. And I look at the period of time in England where Cromwell took over and they basically restored order, but they let a lot of their enemies stay in and keep working themselves in. And then he also kind of refused to really take the mantle and act like a king, which that could be noble. George Washington made the right call at his time, but unfortunately, because of once he passed, they had that window of really good reformation. But then after him, then the enemy came back and they dropped the hammer hard. And I mean, thankfully, that's how we end up getting the Pilgrims coming to America. But I think we can see an accelerated version of that with the technology and the speed of communication that we have in the world right now.
Yeah.
So, Lord willing, we do that. And I am really glad that God has put us. Like we were in Idaho for a little bit when we left California. And I was looking at planting a church, and we are part of really fast growing churches right now over here in Eastern Washington in the CREC. And it's really cool to see what God is doing in spite of all that, just with growing the body, because in those extreme areas, that's where people wake up and they realize, you just go over the border in Idaho and people are more like, leave me alone. I'm comfortable, but they will never leave us alone. Like you can't flee from it. It will come after you. So you can strategically move and do battle, but you have to do battle. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah, and you were talking about you got to rout all of the cancer out, right? And I immediately thought of scripture, a little leaven leavens the whole bread, right? And that's true of both evil and good. That's true of both the gospel, where just a little bit, just a mustard seed of faith, right? Just a little impact just can spread like wildfire, like we saw in the first century of the church. It's also true of evil. It's also true when you put a little drop of motor oil in 1,000 gallons of drinking water. You can't drink that. That's the sad thing is we are, though. That's the crazy thing. So like, since I listened to one of my favorite podcasts, Sean Stevenson, who's a clinical nutritionist, and he's also a Christian, not Reformed, but and he had a gal on that explained that when we drink out of the throwaway coffee cups, they're literally all lined with plastic because otherwise they would leak. All cans are lined with plastic to prevent the metal from leaching in. So we're getting micro doses of these estrogenic, hormone disrupting plastics
And it's like, okay, before you just ban all grains from your life, why don't you get rid of that first? Like, stop drinking that. And I mean, I used to work at Starbucks. I used to literally like mix the hot espresso and caramel and everything right into there, and people would have 2-3 of these a day. Same people. And I mean, it blows you away because the human body can withstand a major assault. But we're eating credit cards worth of plastic at least a week. Children are doing that. Children are eating
a week.
A week.
A credit card of plastic a week.
Yeah, that's how much plastic is just laced in our food. You know, like if you use plastic cutting boards, if you have any plastic cutlery for your kids, you know, like these little plastic plates they're cutting with their fork, you're just getting constant microdoses, and that's on top of what they arrive in this world with. And yeah, it's just terrible. It's in everything. So
now, is that true of all the Tupperware too? I know that there's different kinds of like, you know, Ziploc or Hefty or whatever brand names, but I know that there's like a recycling label that has different numbers on it, and some are more or less.
HDPE, which is the stuff that like a you know, a shake container might be made out of, like something like this, a little thing of knick-knack. It could be like a milk jug. That's generally safer. That's not going to leach. And but pretty much everything that's down from that plastic wise, I have my clinical nutritionist friend, Jim McAfee. He has 2 amazing videos on how to detox all these specific things out of your body. I'm going to put on our website eventually. They're available to our guys in our brotherhood right now, but
put it on me so I can put it on the podcast.
Okay.
Notes.
Sounds good. Yeah, it's on Rumble, so I can send you that link. But yeah, it's like, the more that you can just start getting away from those things, the better. Same thing with like Teflon, right? Moving towards cookware, things that you're interacting with every day, moving away from those things. So this is actually really good that we're talking about this, because a lot of guys want to know where to start, and they either are super open to like, yes, tell me like what supplements and what food I should be taking. And it's a two-way street. It's like repentance. You have to turn away from something and turn to something. And you have to, God wants us to get rid of the bad stuff. He wants us to root it out, destroy the idols, do all that, the things that are poisoning us. You know, he sends them into Canaan to cleanse the land, right? It's not just about them. He's like, this isn't only about you. If you do what these people do, I'll kick you out. So he sends them in there to cleanse the land. And you kind of have to do the same thing when it comes to your home. And a lot of guys, it's pretty awesome, because they'll have this list of things that they want to see changed, and in them or their wife. And
mostly their wife, if we're being honest, most
true.
Of the time, guys are like this and this and this about all the other people. But it's hard to do that about me.
Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, I say this on my most recent podcast, but in most homes, the wife is the nutritional leader. And one of my business partners, who is in upstate New York, he's an engineer by training, but now he does what I do full time, and he's got 8 kids and this farm. Really cool guy. He's the town judge, so he's like, he embodies all the stuff we talk about. And he said, you know why I'm doing this is because men are called to take ownership of the nutritional status of their home and their community. And I just thought, like, what is that? That's the life-giving, the fertility status, essentially, the health status. It starts with nutrition. So you're taking ownership of that. You know, I don't want to say too much more, because my podcast came out today. We'll just say everything I'm about to say. But in essence, like, the first thing that guys want to see is those changes, and they'll get rid of. Basically, I'll help them with their energy every time. I guarantee, like, energy and hormones won't improve, but then they want weight to change. They want a few other things to change. They might have some other issues that are like, 10, 30 years old. It doesn't go away in 3 days, but I give them 90 days. And a lot of times they'll have added the things I've done, but they'll not remove the other stuff.
Oh yeah.
Or they'll be shooting themselves in the foot by, like, okay, let's say that you move from seed oils. That's good. You get those out, but then you're having butter and tallow and like 10 different fats at every meal. And like, that's too much. Those things would have been more rare before. So, but what I encourage them with is, like, you just took 90 days and you got rid of plastics, seed oils. You completely changed what's in your home. That's actually a much bigger win, because that you just saved yourself and your children from having cancer or all these other types of diseases by removing all of the things that it's not any one individual thing. It's this accumulation over time, right? So that's a huge part of it. And if you can honestly start doing that, you'll see massive wins. Now, generally, if you start eliminating and removing things and you don't end up replacing it with something better, it's harder to sustain that habit. And it's always a two-way street, especially with nutrition, because that's primarily about what you put in. So that's why with our brotherhood, we help guys, we track 7 habits every day. We have this free habit tracker on our website that does 6 of them. We added a 7th for our guys in our group, but 2 of them are on the nutrition front. And one is your nutrition, what you're intentionally putting in, like, how much protein am I going for? And we just focus on quality. Like, a lot of people are focused on calories and macros and all that. Those are okay to look at, but we focus on quality. What's the quality of the food? Because same calories of Skittles and grapes are not the same food, right?
Right.
So one has nutrients, the other one doesn't. And then the other thing we track is clean eating. So what are you avoiding? Like, minimize, limit alcohol and stuff like that. Not to say that those things are bad. Sugar, just, get rid of sugar. Everybody could do for a 2-day water fast. Everyone would do great on a 3-week, no added sugar fast and moving towards whole foods. But then you want to start working in the replacements and getting towards the original foods God made.
Now, what I want you to talk about your brotherhood, because we've broached that. We haven't really talked about what that really is, and if somebody wanted to join that, what that would entail. But I also wanted to talk about, if you go to the grocery store, like I'm in Oregon. I don't have a bunch of land. I'm in Salem. Like,
okay, yeah.
We go to the grocery store. Like, I don't have a garden. Most people who are not in Midwest, who are not in the Bible Belt, who are not in the Rust Belt, you're going to be in high density populations, right? They don't have the same ability. And even then you're talking about soil quality, which is a whole different conversation.
Right.
But when even when you go to the grocery store and you stay away from something in a box or in a bag, if God made it, eat it. Great. I tell that to my kids all the time. Stop eating something from a bag or a box.
Yeah.
If you want,
it's pretty much that simple.
Yeah, it really is. If it's got Matt Reynolds was on and Anthony Deal, and they pretty much said the same thing for nutrition. If it has a face or had a face, came from a mother, came from the ground, eat it.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, then don't. Yeah. And that's really, really simple, basic things. But even
it's surprisingly hard to find that in like the amount of quantities that we want, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, you have to plan it out.
And even when you do, and you go to the grocery store and maybe you buy organic, or maybe you buy something there, like that stuff, or your meat. I'm going to buy a family pack from Safeway of some sirloin tip steaks or tri-tip or something, and I cook. Well, that cow is right next to 1,000 other cows with literally no room, but like they're
that's one of the pitfalls of the animal based diet, is like what the animal ate is what you're eating. So, and there's no way to work that out of the equation on the cellular level. Sure, you're getting less carbs and all that kind of stuff, but ultimately you're still getting the same, especially with all the different types of vaccines and everything. Now you're getting genetic material, all that kind of stuff. It's why when people switch to milk from Jersey cows, which is a totally different protein profile, or goats, it affects them differently than the ones that we commonly milk for the scale, right? Yeah. So that's a really good rule. And that's why everybody goes to it. Like if it had a face, if it grew in the ground, and I would say like that's your baby step, that's your stepping stone. But from there, you want to quickly move into better quality versions of that. And I'll give a pitch for why that will actually save you money.
That? So how do you actually get into that? Because like I said, if you go to the grocery store and you're going to, maybe you're not going to Walmart with the bottom rung of everything, the dregs of everything you can cheapest afford. But maybe you go to Fred Meyer, maybe go to Safeway or Albertsons or whatever you have around, Kroger's. Even those, you're still getting from the same farms. You're still getting those injections, those antibiotics.
Yeah, generally.
The hormone disrupting things. You see the food that they eat, they just grind up a bunch. Like I saw one where it was on YouTube. They were showing the feed and how they came up with the feed, and they just literally were shoveling all these things with kids' toys and basketballs, and the grains, and everything was just grinded up, and then they just put it in this chute, and they tied it off, and that was the feed that you're feeding the food.
Well, the pigs aren't going to live long enough for them to get cancer and all that kind of stuff. What they're eating. Yeah, and they're still dumping it back out of their bodies. So that stuff really, that stuff stays in the environment forever. There's these chemicals called PFAS that we're finding everywhere. And funny enough, this guy at my church, he works in wastewater engineering, and he was like the number one contributor to that are puffer jackets. So like all these environmentalists that wear Patagonia and go to REI and everything like that, their puffer jackets are like loading the environment with these forever chemicals. There's only like 2 companies that make puffer jackets without those things, and but it's in everything. And he was like, the amount of chemicals that we just cannot get out of the water are astonishing. They're staggering. So what we have to do then is it's a catch-22 because it's not just that we need to get back to the nutrition. I think this is kind of behind the infertility problem and the miscarriage rate. Like, again, you'll have people that are eating higher protein, meat, and all that kind of stuff, but it's not just we don't just need we need to get back to the adequate amounts of nutrition people used to. We actually need more, because what gets poisons out of your body? Nutrients. What balances heavy metals? Other types of minerals. And all those things are actually super rare, even in organic foods, because the quality has gone down so much compared to how it used to be, right? You're not going to the store and buying an orange that was picked a week ago. It's like 6 months old, even if it's organic. It's been kept in cold storage. So the nutrients that are left in the food by the time we get them are so small. And I mean, organic is better because they actually have standards, but it totally depends on the company. It's like the same with supplements, or, it's the same with supplements. It's the same with your doctor, your mechanic. Like, the quality of the parts and the labor is going to completely determine the end product. So I will say this: when your body starts getting good quality stuff, typically your farmer's market with your local organic farmers is just the best thing to do, because it's grown locally, it's seasonally, it has a short shelf life. Instead of sending it to the store and irradiating it and all that stuff, they're bringing it to the farmer's market and they have to sell it. So if they're doing that, they care. And generally, you can go and find out. Certified organic is helpful, but if you can find that they're generally like a no pesticide regenerative farm, and you can actually go see their farm if they're open to doing that, that's better transparency. So Beyond Organic is what I look for. That's what our supplement company is, and they're probably the only one in the world that's like that. And the reason why that's important is because you don't just want organic pesticides. You don't just want standards that have some nutrients. You want the most nutrients possible. So this is another reason why I'm super stoked about RFK, because he's got, through the different connections, Joel Salatin is advising the ag secretary.
Oh, yeah,
and,
I saw that.
And Joel Salatin's like, hey, this is an entire system that depends on each other. Yeah. You don't want just one, or you don't want a farm that just grows organic apples now, because organic is the only sector of agriculture that's been growing. Because once people know, do I want GMO? Do I want less poisons? Duh, of course we do. But like, then all these big multinational companies, I could show you a graph. I will do it on one of my podcasts at some point, but all of these smaller, healthy organic companies, they all have gotten bought up by the big ones. Nestle owns Garden of Life, which is the top selling organic protein powder that people go and buy. Did Nestle suddenly have a change of heart and the quality is really good? No. When third-party organizations come in and do studies, they end up finding out that they're tainted all the time. Now, it's really bad for products that are certified organic that are imported, because there's basically no way for us to check them in their original source. Right? They just have to take their word. Stuff that's here, but you need to get to know the company. So I'm really big on looking up the company, looking up the brand, looking up some of their farming practices. And there are a lot of good ones that are available out there. There's certainly enough to feed your family. But you'll notice when you start eating those, then you're more satiated, and your body just tells you, I'm good. And then it knows that one's good. It's pretty amazing. So you'll find that over time, you actually spend less money on food, because the foods you're eating are more nutrient dense. So you just don't need to eat as much. Like, it's the whole notion that it's a calorie consumption ratio is false. I learned this when I was an avid cyclist. I would go ride for 3 to 6 hours, and you're burning like thousands of calories. It's one of the highest calorie burn activities that you can. And I would be done with that, and I could eat some oatmeal before I rode, and then I'd eat a snack on my ride, and then like a piece of fruit. And then I'd be done with that, and I would have a 22 amino acid protein shake with 5 grams of all the different fiber that you need, and other nutrient, and a bunch of minerals. And I would be fine for an hour or 2 hours, because it wasn't just simply I need more sugar. Like, my body needed nutrients to repair and replenish itself. And then once I got to, like a certain weight, if I wanted to add muscle, I would need to increase protein, all that kind of stuff. So just all that to point out, like, with our kids, they don't snack as much as other kids that are eating goldfish and stuff all the time. We don't let them have that stuff, because when we feed them, they're heavily satiated. Like, they eat a piece of fruit, it's got a bunch of fiber in it. They're going to be full for hours. There's no fiber in goldfish, right? Yeah. It's just straight carbs and other chemicals. So, and then your body actually says, give me more nutrients so I can get this crap out, because it's poison to me. So I think that's where you can shorten that window, and you can get a lot more out of it, and you can make it feel less expensive if you do really invest in quality, because you'll notice the difference. And then if you just decide, like, I'm going to eat slightly less and see how I feel, then you'll also get some good results from that. And that it takes a little bit of time. Generally, what I do is, because it takes time, I generally work on that one-on-one with people who are coaching with me, because then they can tell me, they can fill out a form, and they can tell me, where am I buying my food? What am I doing? Where do I live? And I can get an idea of, like, are you in a food desert? What's available to you? And we can pretty quickly get them on the path. And then the other thing is, we overcomplicate it. We want Italian food one night. We want Mexican food another night. I'm not saying that that's not helpful, but like, that is a luxury. In the ancient world, people basically ate the same things seasonally all year round, with only some slight diversity. Now it's like no wonder our bodies are jacked up. We're having to digest rice and quinoa and wheat and all these different things all the time. And so you want to try to figure out like really what works best for your family, that's healthy, and that feels good for your body. And it might depend on your genetics a little bit and stuff. And then just try to stay consistent. Like you might know this as a dad, like kids, they don't like, especially when they're younger, they don't like a lot of variety in their food, right? Like it's like my kids would be happy if they got like eggs or oatmeal every morning, and that's pretty much what they get. They get good quality of both of those. And on a rare occasion, we'll make like pancakes. And we give them high protein, high fiber. We try to give them high antioxidants and all that kind of stuff. And they're creatures of habit. Now, my wife is more exploratory at dinner. So for dinner time, it's like, we're doing this new thing. And we've learned to just lower our standards a little bit for them, which is we give them less food for dinner. They eat a lot at breakfast. They eat a really good lunch. And then for dinner time, it's like you have to eat one serving. We don't want picky children. We want to be able to go to people's houses, and our kids are thankful. But we're not going to like force you to have multiple servings of this new Moroccan stew or something like that. Yeah. Now, generally, they like it because it tastes great, but it's got different textures and it's weird. So there's little things like that you can do to win. But I would say like don't blame. You don't want to blame like these farmers and stuff that are trying to do a really good job to give you a lot of nutrient quality. And you also don't want to blame your kids for not adapting. It's something that takes a little bit of time. It's like, I'm amazed at how much time parents put into sports or music or academics or anything for their kids to like become proficient at, but they're so impatient when it comes to doing new health things for their kids. It's like, give your kids these supplements. Well, it didn't work in 2 days, like, okay, well,
right.
Like your kid didn't become wired to macaroni and cheese in 2 days either. Or maybe they did. I don't know.
maybe with those tobacco, tobacco employees, they move over there, they make it, pump a bunch of nicotine in goldfish crackers.
It could be, yeah. Which is funny because we're kind of coming full circle now. Nicotine's making a comeback because there is a lot of research behind just straight tobacco leaves without all the added chemicals.
I just heard that. Literally yesterday, I just heard that nicotine in itself has massive positive health implications. Mm-hmm. It's all the tar and all the other crap that's in cigarettes that causes cancer and free radicals and tumors.
It's actually not. It's not nicotine. Nicotine has about the same. This could get us in trouble too. But nicotine has in its raw form. In the plant, where it has a slower release than when it's isolated. So that's a little different too, right? We take things out of these plants, we isolate them, and they have different impacts on us. But in its like raw form, it's not really any more addictive than caffeine. It's the same kind of thing. Like it's really hard to get to have it all the time. It's all the other things that are added in, and then now synthetic caffeine, synthetic versions of nicotine, made in a lab. Those are designed and engineered to be more addictive. So. It's basically the same principle. You could get to a lot of these things God originally made. Now, just because it's a plant doesn't mean it's healthy and natural. Cyanide is natural. Arsenic's natural, right? All these psychedelic things are natural, but they do things to you that aren't good. Now, we know what properties are in caffeine and nicotine and other things that are actually really good for us. So, nicotine. This is something I'll talk about in an episode, but I haven't yet. So I'll share with your audience. It's a nootropic. Caffeine's a nootropic, and then my favorite nootropic is something called suntheanine, and it does so happen that our company makes the best version of this in the world that they get from Japan. But what a nootropic does is it enhances your natural brain function. So there's psychotropics, which are pharmaceutical drugs, have tons of side effects, including the things they're supposed to be helping, like suicide. And I think that there's negative implications for basically all pharmacia. And then psychedelics, are again supposedly natural, and some people will say good things, but then they are heavily demonic because they open your mind up in unnatural ways. They distort reality. So both of those two things distort reality. Nootropics enhance reality. So nicotine gives you really good focus in an aggressive amount of time. So why was it so good for warfighters? Well, because they need, especially when they're fatigued and they're tired and everything, they need an aggressive ability to focus in a deadly situation when there's so much chaos going on. So it had a lot of benefits from that. And depending on what your work situation is or what your job is, for men, that's a good thing. You want a little bit of aggression and you want to get things done and focus on your task. There is another nootropic that's my favorite. It's called suntheanine, which is a form of L-theanine, a natural form. And it comes from fermented green tea, and it gives you a calm focus. So actually, I just went on a deep dive and did some research behind this and like, why is it the best? And not only is it the most studied, but it works with a lot of other nutrients. Caffeine and nicotine can drain some of your other nutrients because it throttles your adrenals. So it can drain your B vitamins and your minerals, which we're already all short on. That's why you would be fatigued in the morning or in the afternoon, is because of lack of those water soluble nutrients. But the samurai actually used to take it before and after battle, this fermented green tea, to take the edge off so that they could go into battle focused and calm, and so that they could, after battle, calm down. They would even drink it with their enemies before they would behead them. So that was like, kind of just blew my mind. Yeah. But so God has given us these really cool things. And again, this is golden age that we're entering in, where you could be the most healthy, productive person in human history. Right now you could. But you're going to have to eliminate a lot. You're going to have to eliminate a lot of poisons, a lot of distractions, and basically just not do what everybody else does. And then just start picking, 2 or 3 little hacks like that. Drinking a good form of green tea is not a biohack. That's just good nutrients, right? You can start doing little things like that really supercharge your productivity. And I wish Christians were leading the charge on that, because we should be the most productive, hardworking people, because we know that we have to redeem the time.
Now, my podcast is all about just the facts, man. Real, like Dragnet, really practical application things for people. Like, even when it comes to philosophy or theology, nobody has time to go through the Grudem systematic theology when you're a pipe fitter, or when you're a cop, or when you're a fireman or something. So with everything that we have talked about, and all the, we're talking about plastics, you talking about being overweight, talking about being lethargic and having no energy, and all the things. What are maybe some of the top 5 things that somebody can do to just start? We said, if it's got a face, came from a ground, has a mother, eat it. If it's in a box or a bag, don't eat it. But like, if I needed to lose weight, right? Mm-hmm. And I wanted to, which I think anybody in their late 30s, early 40s could probably shed.
I needed to lose about 20 pounds when I started, and I did, thankfully. So yeah.
Maybe give me, in your estimation, the most general, most broad steps that somebody can do to just start removing the nasty products, the most hormone disrupting chemicals, putting on some healthy muscle, restricting the, slimming down, cutting some fat. What are some things that they can do that would encompass all those things?
Yeah. Okay. Pretty simple. So these are kind of the daily do's that I would go back to, right? Like in that podcast.
That setup, the daily do's.
That's great. Yeah. You're welcome. Yeah. There we go. So how you start your day is tremendously important. So starting your day with, you want to drink purified water and get some minerals in it. The simplest way to do that, just get some Celtic sea salt, and put that in there.
Now, why? Because I've been doing that ever since I listened to that podcast. Okay. It's like, this is weird.
Yeah.
But whatever, I'll try. And like literally that day that I started, I was like, wow, it was within 45 seconds. I hadn't even brewed my coffee yet.
Yeah.
But Squirrely Joe's coffee. It's amazing coffee, by the way.
Yes. Shout out to Joe.
I hadn't even finished brewing my coffee yet. And I was like, wow, I don't know what it is, but it feels different. What is it that I'm feeling that's different about? What's different from Celtic salt?
Your body, well, it has, it's not mined, so it has bioavailable minerals. So in layman's terms, bioavailable just means your body actually can use the nutrients. So when you take a Centrum multivitamin or something like that has synthetic nutrients, your body can't use it. It's now a waste product that has to get rid of. So when you
all multivitamins are like that?
99% of them. Yeah. 100%. Companies that make stuff from real food. And then my standard is, you want a company that actually makes ingredients from food, and then they should have clinical proof that it gets into your bloodstream and does its job, because we have the way we know how to do that now. I don't want rat studies. I don't want, hey, zinc is shown to do all this. This is what every supplement company does. This nutrient is shown to do this, and see, we've got it in our product. So this is another thing. If I give you 5 basic things, stop falling for fad marketing and trends. Like, just because a company says these nutrients do this and then it's in their product, that's not the same thing. Like, the stuff that I recommend, those flagship studies are done on our stuff. So like, I met a guy one time, and he was like, oh, I take Juice Plus and do all this kind of stuff. And he's like, look at this study right here. And I'm like, that's an interesting study you just pointed out. That was actually done on our product. Your product has pond scum in it. Like, it's not actually made from food. So that was something that kind of really made me mad when I first started, because here's like, when people are taking supplements, they're trying to get healthier, right? They're going out of their way, spending extra money. The government's obviously not supporting that, everything. And they're buying something they think is actually making them healthier. And like my friend who had leukemia, I learned this from him. He was taking all these different supplements. I met a gal that was taking, and this is from a company that actually gets stuff from natural, but they don't make it in whole food form. Is a company called Standard Process. And their stuff was like all these different, she was taking like 80 supplements, 80 things. It's like crazy. Just replace those with like 10 things that have all the different foods as they're delivered in nature together, saved her a ton of money, and she got better. And of course, we didn't just have her supplement, because a supplement is just that. It's in addition to what you should be eating. You do both. So I like to say that the supplements you want to go for are concentrated nutrients, not just a supplement, not just a multivitamin. You want the nutrients that you're not getting in your food in a concentrated dose to get you back to normal. Or in some cases, like with the whole grain oils, you just can't eat 2,000 calories of grains a day like our ancestors who are walking around farming it all day long could have. So it's really helpful to get that in a supplement form where you're basically not getting those calories. You're just getting those nutrients. Minerals, same kind of thing. Like you couldn't eat enough fruits and vegetables in a day to replenish all the minerals you need. So taking a mineral supplement or adding Celtic sea salt is really helpful. And the reason that the Celtic sea salt is so good is because it's in a form that your body can absorb. Now, it doesn't have all the minerals, but it's got some of the most basic ones. Now, what happens is you just woke up. Overnight, your body repaired, and minerals are one of the main things it uses. There's two different nutrient groups. There's water soluble and fat soluble. So I'll break this down. Water soluble means you pee it out. So as much as you're putting it in and peeing it out, those nutrients are gone. They don't last over 24 hours. Basically, most of them don't last over more than a few hours. Fat soluble nutrients stay in your body because they're like fats. So things like vitamin E and omega-3s. So every morning you are super deficient in all those water soluble nutrients. So this trend of like fasting for super long, I don't think is a good one. It matters what you break your fast with more than when, but you need to break your fast with nutrients. Your body's not deficient in caffeine when you wake up. As a matter of fact, caffeine is just going to drain your B vitamins, and it's going to drain your minerals even more, because caffeine is acidic. Coffee's acidic. So how does your body balance the acidity? It pulls minerals out of and if you don't have them in your diet, it will pull them out of your bones. So that's why you felt different, because you're dehydrated, and hydration is not water alone, it's minerals. So that's a very simple thing you could do right when you wake up. And then I would say the next thing is go for protein first thing. Food wise, some good quality eggs, best thing that you could probably do. Yeah. And I don't typically recommend shakes unless it's a really good one, like the one that I use. I've used it for 15 years. It's made from all 22 amino acids. It's not damaged, and it's got all these other nutrients. So for us, that generally, especially with the price of eggs right now, actually tends to do a little bit better for us. But like this morning, I got up, I had water with sea salt electrolytes in it. I ate a little piece of fruit. I went to a men's morning Bible study, and then I went to the gym right after that. And because I wasn't working out and getting my heart rate up super high, I was lifting, then I didn't need to eat food before that. I had just enough. If I was going to do something that was more along the lines of cardio or high intensity, then I would consume some food so that I don't burn my muscle. I did my workout, sat in the sauna, drank some more water, and then I got in the car and I had my shake. I got about 30 grams of protein and all the amino acids. And then I come home and my wife made me eggs. And because I had that shake, I didn't have to have 4 or 5 eggs like I normally would. I only had 2, and I had a couple sausage links. And that's all I've had today. And then, and that was about like 8:30, something like that. I've just been drinking water ever since, and I'll probably have another shake this afternoon, and then I'll have dinner tonight. So eating a lot of protein, especially in the beginning of the day, is really good for you. If you're someone that struggles with like lethargic digestive system or constipation, anything like that, then I would recommend that you eat things that are easier to digest. So a piece of fruit is the best thing to do in the morning. And simple way to do that, just get what is organic and what's the least expensive right now, because whatever is seasonal is less expensive. So apples, great. Right now it's citrus, right? So you can go to the store and you get kiwis, pineapple. You can look up the Dirty Dozen and Clean 15 list. That's totally free. Every year they put out a list of what fruits and vegetables have the most pesticides, and there are ones that are not organic that don't have a lot. So they may not have quite as much nutrients, but if you're supplementing, you're going for the healthy food. So we got a bunch of pineapples for like $2 a piece the other day from our local Yolks, and we got the non-organic ones because those are on the Clean 15 list. They're like at the top. There's other stuff that we got that we made sure to get organic. And then we just have fruit at the beginning of the day. Fruit is easy to digest. It has a lot of vitamins and minerals. So starting off your day with real food is incredibly important. If you eat a bagel and have coffee instead of doing those things, you will be tired, guaranteed. And it will continue to pile on. And and if the other thing is, look at what is mastering you. I think that's really important for guys. And we tend to say, well, this is something that masters everybody, so it's not a problem, right? Or the doctor doesn't say it's bad. But if you have to have sugar or caffeine or nicotine, whatever it is, like if you just can't go without it, then it masters you. And you need to take an audit of that and then check it. And it's no good telling your kids not to let it do that if it's the same for you. So my general rule is, if I can't go for a few days without thinking about it a ton, like I've got to have it, my coffee and everything like that, then it's kind of got a little too much control over me right now, and I'll take a look at it. So hopefully we kind of covered, you start your day off right. Another thing you do, exercise. When should you exercise? How much? Exercise in the morning, and honestly, anything that's fun and sweaty. It's not that hard. What's fun and what's sweaty?
Every husband just laughed right now.
yeah. That's, hey, exercise, right? But yeah, that would typically be in the morning. So I would say, like, what you can, as a guy, you can go on a mile run and you can survive. You'll survive. You might be like, but like, don't go for speed. Just go out for a mile, track it. You can go for a 2-mile walk. You can get that done in like 30 minutes. You can throw on a YouTube playlist. We provide this to our guys in our group, or even the guys in our free Signal chat. And you could just throw on a YouTube video that gives you a 10-minute workout that's just going to basically do like 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off. Just start doing a little bit a day. And we tell guys 15 minutes a day, ideally in the morning. Why in the morning? Because your willpower goes down as the day goes on. If you're already fatigued, you are unlikely to come home and do that. And that's really when you should be giving your time to your family and all that kind of stuff. But if you want to have energy for your family when you come home from work, especially from a hard job like what you do, then you need to do those important things in the morning. And I think men need to have a more holistic, anti-Gnostic view of what worshiping God is. Worshiping God is like, when did coffee come into the picture? Not that long ago in history, right? That's not like an essential ritual to your Bible study. Highly important. Obviously, we have access to it. We need to do it. But when did Christians actually start having physical Bibles to read and study in depth? It was pretty recent in history. Before, they literally just believed what they heard, obeyed it, and they would pray. We pray way less, and then we think that, like, let me get up and do this passive activity of study. When in the morning, when you get up, the first thing you really need to do is get active. You need to get your blood flowing. You need to get moving. A farmer knows this. A farmer has to get up early and go feed the animals and do all that kind of stuff. After breakfast, he could take his break and do his Bible study. And a lot of them do that. And so I recommend to guys, honestly, you could start worshiping God by taking care of your body and therefore taking care of your family. And you could listen to the audio Bible while you work out, while you're on your way to the gym. You can memorize scripture. You can listen to a podcast. So you can still do that study. You can still do that reading. I listen to the audio Bible every morning when I'm at the gym and in the sauna. And like, man, I listen to the same thing over and over. And your body, if you're exercising and flowing blood and oxygen and listening to the word of God, you actually absorb it better than if you're just like trying to keep your eyes open, sipping on your coffee, because your brain can't put stuff together very well if it's not being taken care of. So I think there needs to be a renaissance of guys understanding that, like, you're not holier if you sacrifice your health and all that for like study time. Just like if you sacrificed your family for that, you wouldn't be better off.
Yeah, you remind me of something I used to do when I didn't have to wake up at 4:00 in the morning and get ready and start work at 5:30 in the morning. But when I didn't have to report until about 8 or 7:30, me and a couple of guys, just a handful of guys, would do something. We called it Rise and Grind, and it was a flashback to when I was in high school in sports. Like whether you play football, basketball, baseball, volleyball, soccer, whatever it is, you get there before you go to school.
Yeah,
you're working out. You're working out with the fellas. So we started doing that. Maybe half a dozen of us, and we'd rise and grind. And it was just this circuit routine, where we would somebody would be on the treadmill, and then somebody would be like literally just doing push-ups right next to them. And then you'd have the jump rope, and then you'd have bench press, and you'd have squat, and you'd have a couple other things here and there.
Yes, you're doing cardio and strength.
Exactly. It was basically a high intensity workout first thing in the morning. And then to finish it off, just for bragging rights, we'd do like wind sprints,
Yeah.
like line drills in basketball. It was line drills. So you
Okay.
have to run from the wall to the first line, back to the wall, the second line, until you get to the full court, and then you're done. And the first one done, the last one done had to buy lunch, and the first one done didn't have to. I can't remember what it was, but there was a prize, right?
Yeah.
Not just bragging.
That's
rights.
great.
But for that, maybe 6 months or so that we did that, everybody was just, it was, everybody had a good time at work. Everybody had a good time at home. Their work life and their home life were pretty good. They had good attitudes over there. And then we stopped doing that from different schedule changes and promotions and traveling arrangements and things like that. Everything just started to tank slowly. And I think you bring up a really, really good point with the wake up and go work out.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. I don't think it really, really matters, depending on what season of your life, what kind of workout it is. Get your heart rate up.
Yep.
And
just do something. Move.
Do something. Do something. Now, for me, unless I have a cold bar of steel in my hand, I feel like I just didn't do anything.
Yeah. I'm getting to that point too. Yeah.
I need to feel like I'm wielding a sword or something. I need to feel like I'm conquering when I'm at the workout, because really you're conquering your unhealthiness. You're conquering
you're conquering comfortability. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Matt Reynolds says, go do something hard. Like do something hard, because when you achieve something that's this difficult, and even in the last Saturday, we had our monthly podcast, Regular Man Unscripted, and even through all the terrible audio issues and technical issues that we had, it was a good conversation, because it was like my buddy James said, that feeling where you don't know if you can get that last rep in or something, but you do it anyway, and you push through the discomfort. What he was trying to get at is you push through the discomfort, and you push through, and you give that extra like ounce in the tank that you never tap. And you finally finish, and you hit that last set, and you rack it, and you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's what people miss, at men especially. That's what you're missing out when you don't work out.
Right.
That sense of accomplishment, that achievement, that overcoming that obstacle of something that's difficult for you to achieve. And I don't feel like it. I look at that. This is a mental acuity, a mental toughness thing. People don't put their minds in those situations where they have to use it, so they don't ever use it. They don't put their bodies in those situations where they have to use it, so they don't use it. In their spiritual life, they don't embrace those discomfort things. You were talking about if you can't go through a couple days without having a drink or a cigarette or a piece of food, something, then that thing has mastery over you, and that is a direct correlation with your spiritual discipline. If you're allowing something to have that kind of control over you and your desires, then you need to master that. You need to have some self-discipline and put yourself in those situations where you have those choice. Right now I have a choice. In 10 minutes I have a choice, and I need to choose. I need to flex that muscle of overcoming that difficult decision to choose the right thing. And over and over and over, just like a bench press, you don't get to 225, 315, 405, whatever. You can't bench that just overnight. You have to consistently face adversity and consistently give that extra ounce over and over and over.
And some of those things, man, it takes a long time to get to that level. Like that's one of the things I've loved about weightlifting the most, because you get to this point where it's like, okay, yeah, I can do 135, 4 sets of 10 all day long. But then like you really try to get up there with some of those things, and there'll be things that you're weaker at, like squat is weak for me compared to all the other stuff. And over time, but man, when you start really hitting those upper thresholds, it's like, I only got here by year. Like it's, I've been doing this for 2.5 years, the weightlifting side, and it's like cycling,
it comes down to consistency.
Yeah. Which is, that's one of the things I love about Tate. He beats that drum. Like we have a really good balance in Be Regenerated. And there's more than just the two of us with a team of guys who are like, okay, here's all the things, but then it's like, here's 4 things. So like Alex just wrote a recent article on our Substack that was great. It was like, here's the foundations. do these 4 things and stop overcomplicating it. Like good hydration, good nutrition, high protein, good rest, and then pick up some heavy stuff. It's really that simple, and you can find what's fun. Now, to your point with the other guys, this is where a lot of men, they don't sustain because they don't do it. There's no social reinforcement. Back in the old world, right, in the Greco-Roman days when gyms were becoming a thing, it's like you had to be ready to defend your city in an instant, because this is just a reality. As much as the world's progressing, like you could be invaded and all the men would be called to fight, right? Not the women, the men. So you had to be ready to go to war. So you had to train, right? Guys would get up in the morning and they would be training for combat. That was normal. You had to be in physical shape to be able to handle a yoke of oxen and to be able to, chop down these like, back in Jesus' day, the wheat would have gone over your head. Now it doesn't get that high because of what we've done to it. But, you would have had to have some physical strength. Jesus was literally a stonemason. People don't.
He was working with stones, not wood.
Yeah, rocks. They don't have trees everywhere there, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So the dude was like strong. He had to be physically strong. And so like, we need to get back to this. The ideal Christian is not somebody who's in a theological high tower who knows all this theology and all this history. That's great, and you can consume that really fast. But we have a famine of men who are actually masculine. And the truth is, if you don't do physical things like that, you will not have masculinity in your body. You can't just have it in your head. You have to have it in your body. Right? It's this wisdom. So if you go and you lift heavy things, your body is going to start putting on muscle and it's going to increase its amount of testosterone. Now, granted, you have to have the things there ideally to sustain that nutrition wise, right? Like you're going to tear down, you're going to build up. You have to have those things. That's just that's common sense. But yeah, if you just start doing that, then you'll naturally eat healthier and do those other things. And man, the high is the wrong word, but the satisfaction that God has built into a hard day's labor. He talks about this in Ecclesiastes. It's kind of the same feeling you get when you work out hard, because now we don't do real manual labor. It's to the point where we have to go take this extra time out of our schedule to do this burst of manual labor. And we do that, and you feel this sense of gratification. Like, I just accomplished thing. I just did this thing, which is why all these people going back into farming, like good farming, are just loving it, because it gets them on this routine where like they don't see the results immediately. It takes time. It takes a season. You'll go through hardships. You'll go through injuries. You'll go through losses. But you wanna start stacking that habit. Now, doing it with other guys, like starting off simple, and then scaling is really important. I started off for a couple years doing high intensity interval training for 15 up to 30 minutes several days a week. And then I worked my way back into the gym after COVID. And then you slowly start adding other things. I started doing running because I didn't want to just do cycling and swimming. I wanted to do triathlons. I
see that kettlebell behind you. I love it.
Yeah. That's I got my Armored Republic carryover there. So now I'll go run and do a hike with that 22 pounds on me, right? So you just start with what you have. Your own body can do a lot. That's why with the standard program that we're doing right now with Armored Republic, we were like, what is like the basic Army standards are push-ups and pull-ups. That tells you a lot if a guy can do some pull-ups or do some push-ups. And then running 2 miles, because like how normal would it have been for people to need to run or walk many miles until not that long ago? Very normal. So very basic stuff that most guys should be able to do. You start doing that. We do a test where you do that without the weight, and then you start doing it with the weight. And man, adding the 22 pounds on to do push-ups and pull-ups is hard. Like I thought, pull-ups were becoming easy for me, but not when you add that weight. So it's all a progression, and it happens sooner than you think. If you take good care of your body with the nutrition and the rest, you'll minimize any hiccups and injuries. If you just throw down and go hard right away, you might have some problems. So talk to someone who's knowledgeable on the subject. We've got plenty of resources that Tate has. Your buddies could talk to you. And then doing stuff with other guys is really important too, because again, to go back to this time, would men have just always been training alone? No, they'd have been training with other guys. They'd been going out there with their swords and learning how to fight as a unit, because one fighter by himself, unless he's one of David's mighty men, but he had mighty men, plural. He didn't just have one mighty man, right? Yeah. Whole bunch of them. So God uses these groups of guys, and you want to have that. So we call it, I hate the term accountability, because if you're determined not to be accountable, you cannot be accountable, right? Like I know what is meant by it, but like, if you want to get around the software on your computer to look at porn, you can do it. Like there's just ways to do it. You could delete it and it'll notify somebody. Like the accountability is going to come when you're held responsible for the sin that you commit. But when it comes to actually making progress, you don't need accountability. That's not a proactive thing. That's a reactive thing. You need reinforcement. So we call it social reinforcement. You need to have like literally dopamine triggers that
Yeah.
gets you to do something. And then you have a good dopamine release after you do something. That's God's reward pathway. So when you are intimate with your wife, it's obviously way better than if you watch something on, there's no guilt, there's no shame, because God has made it that way. So when you work
the
out
best
hard,
workout.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah,
It's true.
It's very true. Yeah. And when you work out, like physically work out, instead of cheating it or trying to, cut calories or do Ozempic or some other trash, when you do the real thing, you have this sustained dopamine release that actually makes that a more hardwired habit. And, God, we talk about not being mastered by things, but God actually did design some things for us to be mastered by, right? Our wives. We're supposed to be like captivated with desire from our wives. God doesn't just simply say, don't lust after women. Like, desire your own wife, your own well, drink water from that well, right?
Yeah.
Be ever captivated by her love. Good food. Like, there's never going to be a day where you don't need to eat, right? Even in the eternal kingdom, and even before the fall, we ate food. Like, we needed to have. So God did design us to be dependent on some things. Exercise is one of those things. His word, prayer is another one. So don't neglect those. And we help guys track those every day in the Brotherhood. So we have this digital tracker within our community. And then guys go in there and they just check off these 7 things. And most of them, about 5 of them, you could do in the morning. So you start your day. Did I get enough sleep? Sleep's checked off. If you got 6 or more hours of quality sleep, then you start your day with good protein. Check that off. Start your day with 15 minutes or more of exercise. Boom, that's done. So you can get through most of those things within your power hour in the morning, even a half hour, honestly. Like, we designed it to where if you have your nutrition dialed, you could really be done with those things in a half an hour. And if you'd give yourself an hour in the morning, how about a half an hour for health and a half an hour for prayer and Bible study? That's like, that's a solid day. And if guys own their morning, if you start your day off conquering, like from the get-go, man, it's just, you're right. Like, it's like when you get up in the morning and you're running behind and you just had time to grab your coffee and you get to work and you're like, oh, I didn't think about anything last night, versus when you're in the morning and you're in the zone, you do your workout, your other guys you get there. And as a unit, you're like, you could just take on the day. Right.
Oh yeah. 100%. In the military, you bring up a good point with a brotherhood, and it's something I think that's awesome that's something that you provide for like-minded people, fellow Christians who are all trying to focus in the same things, on the same direction, for the same purposes. That's very, very powerful. And I was thinking about my time in the military, and they say, whether you're Air Force, Army, Marine, Navy, or even, I guess, Coast Guard, I don't know. But
my sister's in the Coast Guard.
But if you're
a lot of ladies in the Coast Guard,
there's a lot of ladies, even the men. And, you get done more before 9 a.m. than most people do all week long.
Yeah,
and
true.
And I remember back. You were talking about push-ups, and so the very minimum basic standards for military was push-ups, sit-ups. It was running a 2 miles in, I think it was 18 minutes or something. You could jog that. And as an 18-year-old man, I could do that. It was just being consistent with all those things and then seeing the improvement. But the reason that I bring it up is what I remember the most significantly about that time, just in basic training, was there was a massive difference between when you did it just kind of by yourself, you're just doing push-ups by yourself, and running by yourself or whatever, versus like when you took your I think it was quarterly, whatever you had to pass your physical fitness tests. You're running by yourself, but in boot camp, you're running with a team. You're running with men. You're running with 12 different people, 8 to 12 different people. And we did Indian runs, right? I don't know if that's politically correct or not, whatever it is. I don't care. But we ran in a single file line, and then the first person, led. The person in the back would just sprint from the back to the front, boom, full force. And then as soon as he landed at the front of the line, the last person in line, boom, sprinted towards the first. And we did that for at least an hour at a time. And we were just exhausted every time. But tell you what happened. Not only did our physical fitness improve, not only did we feel amazing when we were done, and tired, but good tired. Tired physically, but ready for more.
Yeah. Not tired because I've been sitting in my chair on my phone for a long time, like
eating
shameful tired
and drinking Starbucks. Not shameful tired. But another thing happened too. we became so tight as men.
Yeah.
It was a genuine friendship. It was like, I can see how the Bible talks about greater love hath no man than this, than to die for your friends.
Yeah.
That phileo, that brotherly love, Philadelphia, the city of
Yeah.
brotherly love, that phileo love.
Phileas, yeah, that means like son. It's like even a. Because I was just my kids. My wife was doing Latin with my kids this morning, and I heard her like explain that. I was like, there we go.
And what's interesting about that is the Greek translation. It comes directly from agape, agapeos.
Right.
So that encompasses, that kind of love encompasses. It's part of that God sacrificial love. That is the love of, I die for you, bro. I would die for you, because God did die for us. And you see that really exemplified in that military service, and in your literal blood brother that you grow up with, and people that you deploy with in the military, your firemen, your cops, your corrections officer, whatever you're doing, like, you're battling daily. And these are the people in arms, your brothers in arms, that are sacrificing. They're taking hits just like you are, and you're working out with them. And anyway, the point is, when you work together and you're exerting yourself and you're working out and you're working towards a common goal, and you're developing that tightness, that brotherhood, that brotherly love, that pushes you, man. That pushes you when you don't have anything less in the tank. You're empty. You're done, and you either have, get off your ass, you fat ass, keep going, or because that motivates some people. Or it's like, come on, man,
that's loving, though, isn't it? Like,
it is.
When
really
you know
is.
someone can push harder, when you know that they shouldn't give up. Like, I took my kids to their ski school, and they've done some skiing, my two oldest boys, but they have a free ski school over here on the border of Montana. I took them up, and man, I was like really frustrated, because there was one kid had the same name as my son, Judah, which means praise the Lord. So it's a great name. Yeah. And then there was these two dads, like probably in their 40s, early 50s or something. And they're like, not very long after the class started, the kids came to their dads, and they're like, oh, I don't feel good. I don't want to do this. Totally went. And the dads just stood there like arguing with them. Well, that's not how this works. And we drove all the way up here, and you were fine in the car. And I'm like, okay, first of all, confusing the kids' authority. And I just, like, the dads literally walked away with the kids, and they let their kids be quitters. And I wasn't mad at the kids. I was livid at the dads. I'm like, you're raising. Yeah, that's funny. So my sister's in the Coast Guard, and she, but she's a very masculine. She's a very tough girl. She would be like the quintessential tomboy, right? She's really sweet and everything like that too. But like, she was a beast in water polo and everything. And she, because she did so well, she was in honor guard for a little bit. So she's met the Resident Biden and everything like that. But she's in honor guard. But she has even like told us that she's tired of just how weak and wimpy people are in general, but especially men. Yeah. And anyways, like, I was so mad. Because of these dads are turning these kids into, like, instead of being a blessing on society, they're going to be a terror on society, because they're quittered. And like that, it's actually not just criminals, like, straight to begin with. It's weak people, because what leads you to cut corners and steal and lie and cheat? Weakness. And the child doesn't come weak. Well, a child is weak, but they're wired to do hard stuff. They'll figure things out. Like, my boys, I take them rock climbing on Thursdays, and what a great sport. I mean, they're small, they're built for it. They just zoom right up. If I lift before I rock climb, I'm like 3 routes and I'm toast, like complete
Talk about
toast.
Pull-ups, man. That's something else.
Oh, it's hard. Yeah. And it's like, okay, they love this. And then my second son, he's very athletically, like, he's a beast. Like, he's going to be great at a lot of things. My older son is not as much like that. He's not as aggressive, but because I pushed him to be able to do stuff like that, throw him with some pads on for Taekwondo, and these other kids come after and wail on him, and you just have to get out of that situation. So, and man, boys love, like, rising to the occasion on that. I was so proud of my oldest son the other day, because I was at one of our Airbnbs fixing a toilet, learning how to do it. My dad taught me a lot of that kind of stuff. It doesn't come naturally to me like it does my dad. I don't enjoy it like my dad does. But while I'm there, my wife calls me with one of my sons. My wife calls me and said, your oldest son, Judah, he noticed that the bathroom handle toilet was loose upstairs. And he just said, don't worry, Mom, I'll fix it. Went and got one of my tools. Like, I've never fixed this particular toilet. Like, it just fixes it and does it all on his own. And I'm like,
that's so cool.
It didn't take very long. He just figured it out. But it's more of a mindset thing. He's been taught that he can do it. And I'll just kind of tie that back into, of all the things that you could do as a man to really improve your health, like, first of all, you should definitely have a higher, like, if you could do it for the military and for your guys and for your country, or for whatever reason, you could do it for your family. It's got to be important. Your children will not be healthy if you're not healthy, because you can tell your kids save money, but if you get in debt and you live your lifestyle that way, they'll do the same thing. You can tell your kids eat healthy, but if you don't do it, they'll do what you do. I always tell people, like, all the diseases we suffer from, they're not infectious. So, you can't, if you had cancer, you couldn't give your child of the same blood type a transfusion and give them your cancer. It just wouldn't happen. But if you eat like someone who is going to have diabetes, like a pre-diabetic, your child will most likely be pre-diabetic and have it sooner than yours. So there's this blessing and curse that happens. And as a man, if you can not only preach the gospel to yourself, but if you can just talk to yourself and man yourself up that I can do these things. I can lose fat. I can get in shape. On the fundamental level, losing weight is not that complex. You have to be burning more calories than you're consuming. And you have to be strength training is actually the best thing for weightlifting or for weight loss. It's not cardio. Cardio at a certain point will start burning your muscle. Like strength training, especially if you do it in the morning, that actually, when you're sitting down or when I'm standing, like when right now, for the work, the day, because I have this job, then like my burn rate of calories is much higher because my body is building muscle, which is burning fat. So strength training pays massive dividends for that. And if you can have the right motivations and the right reinforcement, then it's not very complex. All the nuance can come later, but put yourself in an environment and give yourself enough of a reason. I have guys fill out, this is free on our website too, on Be Regenerated. I have this, it's called a regeneration blueprint. All the guys have to fill it out when they join our brotherhood. And then in the brotherhood, me and Tate, we audit them with these guys and we go through it and see, like, all right, we have all of these self-paced tools in here and the reinforcement, but like, do you know what you really need to do? In 90 days, who are you going to be? Who and how will that, we ask guys, okay, if in 90 days you could change these things, what would they be? And then if you could change those, what would your life be like? Okay, how would that impact your family? How would that impact your relationship with God? And how would it impact your ability to have an influence on the world? And when guys just think about that and they literally write it down, set it in front of them for like the next 90 days, it's on their workbench or on their board. It's like, okay, now I have a vision. Without a vision, people perish. And men are so used to just going to work for somebody else and do something else. And it's away from the home. It's not tied to this larger vision of why am I doing these things? And we're so Gnostic because we've been trained this way, unfortunately, in the church and in school to think about our bodies and our minds and our spirits as two different things rather than God breathing them together. And the fact that we are going to have a body eternally, like you're going to get a renewed body. Does that mean you should trash the one that you have now prematurely? Absolutely not. Like you are, maybe, this is just a fat maybe, but maybe the type of body that you'll receive eternally is going to be in proportion to how you took care of this one, because everything else is in proportion. So that's worth considering. And I just now thought of that. But like it's not too complicated. And then a buddy, you just got to have a buddy, like you said. And now it could be as simple as a lot of my habits I built with really close friends where we just had a deal where we're just going to text each other a thumbs up if we did that one thing we said we were going to do every day.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. So I know we're getting a little long on the tooth on time. If you could give anybody who's listening to me or us, if you could just write something out, let's write out a diet. Let's write out a diet for a guy who's going to, who's typically eating out of a box or a bag, Starbucks or McDonald's or some crap like that. I already know you're going to say, drink some Celtic. So wake up, do 50 air squats, do 20 push-ups, do something.
Some jumping jacks. Yeah.
Do something. And then go drink some Celtic salt with water. Okay. Right. And then, if you want to drink coffee, fine, drink it black. And then eat something like eggs, eat something like a good quality protein shake. And then for lunch, what do you say? Maybe some hard-boiled eggs, some tri-tip, some salad.
Yeah. Generally you can have what's left over from, I make it so that my wife makes enough dinner where I can have leftovers the next day. And then we do a lot more on the weekends. Like typically we make a lot on Saturdays so that Sunday after church, we come home, we have a big meal. We do like a light breakfast, we have a big meal, and then we're pretty much full for the day. So just making more when you do make your meals is always helpful, especially if it's like really nutrient dense food, and within a couple of days it should need to be eaten. So that will help you. Just try to go for protein and fiber. And the reason why on the fiber is it fills you up, it satiates you. If you're not working a physically demanding job, then you want your body to be full and satiated rather than filling that with empty calories. The reason you can eat a bunch of meat and chips is because that stuff will just kind of like, it doesn't really take up any space, and it's going to have a quick release of blood sugar. So I love to take fruit with me. And then this is where I'll say, like, a lot of times, you know, I give guys all these different foods and stuff they could do. Look, you need a quick win. Guys need a quick win. And this is why everyone goes for protein shakes. This is why every influencer, it doesn't matter if you listen to Andrew Huberman or Tucker or whoever, everyone is going to be recommending something. So I've done the same thing for 15 years. If you want to know what I do, then you could just shoot me a message and check it out. If you just go to shopneolife.com/beregenerated, super simple. But like, I do that for at least one meal a day, and I have never been able to put together a meal that would cost me less and have as many nutrients as that. And I look at that as that is a good form of convenience. When I go out for the day, I always take an extra shake with me. Usually it's going to be for after I lift or something like that. But I have it so that I'm not tempted to get some junk. And I usually wouldn't buy junk, but if I'm going to go get a Chipotle burrito or something, it's going to have some plastic in it, whatever, but healthier eating out, that's still going to cost me $15. Like, it's just too much. Like, and it's going to be too many calories in the middle of the day, and I'm going to be tired later. So I take things with me like an apple or some fruit. Probably one of the best things that's easy on the go is cottage cheese. Get some organic cottage cheese, 2 cups of cottage cheese with some fruit. I know. I used to hate it, but I add fruit to it. Yogurt, Greek yogurt, same thing. Basically the same thing. Get some low-fat organic Greek yogurt, throw some blueberries in that. You'll just like forget that you were hungry because you had so much protein. So don't add a bunch of sugar things like granola and stuff like that to it. Be careful. Something can say organic like brownies, but it doesn't mean it's healthy for you. Just eat things that are high in protein, low in sugar, and then fruit. Like, God, there's a reason why when he put man in the garden, it was a fruit garden. Like, eat fruit that's in season, and it doesn't get old. There's enough of variety, and it's sweet, but it has fiber so that it'll be a slow release of sugar, and it just really can't go bad. And if you don't eat it, it spoils. So that's how you know you got some good fruit. I also like nuts. You just got to be careful not to eat too much. Pistachios are great. Almonds are great. Things like that. Just give yourself healthy options. You can get a meat stick. That's a great one. And then, like if your wife made some tri-tip for dinner, throw that on a salad for lunch, dude, you're good to go. Like, I think people overcomplicate it. Like, if you just start to put together, like, what are the things that I like? And then of those things, what are healthy? And then what's my food budget? And then start sticking within that, and you'll do very well.
And then the most important, obviously, the 2 most important would be sleep and water. Mm-hmm. Keep hydrated and get good sleep.
Yeah, I'd say like movement and rest are 2 sides of the same coin. God gives rest to his beloved, it says in Psalms. And then hydration, nutrition are 2 sides of the same coin, just like, works and faith.
Yeah, great way. This is a great way to end it. Hey, where can people go to see more of what you're doing, listen to your podcast if they want to be part of the Brotherhood, and talk and the supplements that you've been bringing up? Where can they give me all the things?
Yeah, first of all, definitely, like, if you have questions on those, reach out, do some research. I've got videos on our YouTube channel that really dive into stuff because, you just kind of Google whatever. You won't find anything bad, but like, you want to find information from the right sources. So that's pretty much true with anything. And then
what's your YouTube account?
Be Regenerated. Yep.
Be Regenerated.
So pretty much everything is Be Regenerated. So we'll see if the stream sticks up there. But yeah, you can. And then if you want to find out more about that, I would say that probably the best place is just start with podcasts. Go to the beginning. We only have 10 episodes so far, and I literally just walk through biblical nutrition.
Out, man.
I know.
You got to pump some more. I keep looking at my Spotify.
Well, we launched with Armored Republic, and then I opened up like coaching, and man, we've just all glory to God. I've been doing this with people one-on-one, and I love it because it's like, dad gets better, mom gets better, they start having more kids, the kids get healthier. I know it's paying dividends. So that's really where my heart is. But awesome. It's awesome that we can we can put that in podcast form. So yeah, go check that out. We made it really high production quality. So it's kind of like on this, not quite on the same level, but up there with like a Haunted Cosmos or King Saul. There's music. Actually, one of the same guys that works for them produces it for me. So that's why we're next in line after them. That's why it's been slower to come out, because we don't have the same backing as they do yet.
They're super busy.
Yeah, they are. Sure. Yeah. And Tate's going to take us. We're going to cover multiple things. We're in nutrition right now. I'll keep coming back to it because that's the number one thing guys are asking about. Like, they know for working out, they just need to start being consistent, but they know that there's a lot more confusion around nutrition, and it kind of can vary based on the person. So if you want to touch base on any of that, you can reach out to me in person. I connect with people all day long. And then for Be Regenerated, just go to beregenerated.com. You can book a call with me there. You can book a call with Tate. You can look at our different coaching programs. We have a really cool deal right now. If you want to get some body armor that doubles as a weight vest, you can get, if you use the code ARXBR, Armored Republic by Be Regenerated. If you go to the standard, then you can buy a custom kit that we have and some of their other stuff, and you can get 30% off with that code. Oh, wow. And we also offer 30% off our 12-week coaching program. The same thing. If you use that code on our website, Tate has it all programmed in. We use Matt Reynolds' app, the same app, which is really cool. And then on the nutrition side, I give you an app where you can literally scan the foods that you're doing, and you can look at your macros and everything. And I kind of just come in behind that. And then I get guys set up on a specific plan for them. I look at what supplements you're doing, all that kind of stuff. And just, and then if you want to do that more self-paced, you'll see that on the same page. If you go to beregenerated.com/the standard, we have our monthly brotherhood membership that you could do. And it's a lot less expensive and basically gives you the same stuff, but just in more of like a group format.
And then what are the supplements? Where can they get the supplements that you've been talking about?
That's linked. That's linked on our website as well. So yeah, if you go to shopneolife.com/beregenerated, you can get all that stuff there. It'll be, you can look in the shop, you can look on the homepage, you can download the clinical studies. I'll send you a link for that. And people can look it up. And you can get, with that link, you can get up to 20% off, minimum 10% off, just depending on how you order with my code.
Now I'm pretty, my word means a lot to me, and there's only Joe Morris from Squirrely Joe's Coffee, Paul Brown from Watson Watches. This is coming out too. He just started to sponsor me. Right?
Very cool.
It's awesome watch. My favorite by far. Most expensive by far ever.
Hey, quality, right? Quality's worth it.
Yeah. And Chance from 1689 Cigars. I don't have any other sponsors because my word means a lot to me.
Yeah.
And ever since I listened to your podcast and I started doing the things that you said on the daily do's and don'ts, I can say I started taking that Trianen and I started drinking the water with the Celtic sea salt, and I can 100% see a difference.
Praise the Lord. Wow.
If anybody's listening, I'll vouch for Cameron. And
well, then I'll go find your custom link and you could put that in there, because what's cool is with Neolife, even just as a customer, you can refer other people. So we track that as well. And then I'll just kind of throw another thing out there. Armored Republic has been amazing to work with us, another solid Christian company, and then 1689 as well. And we've got some custom Be Regenerated cigars coming out. Nice. We sent the band designs in, and then we're going to be also doing a pipe tobacco line with them. So I'm really excited for that.
Very cool. So they can buy the Regular Man podcast cigar, the Maduro, and then your custom Be Regenerated.
Yeah, 100%. Cigars. Yeah, and then we have on our website we have a page for that, and then we give an extra discount on all those things, plus farmer bills, provisions. We've got a coffee and just several different things.
Biltong, right?
Yes, good stuff.
I gotta get some of that.
I think I'll send you our code because we have a discount code. Yeah,
my coworker of mine, actually my mentor, he's from South Africa, and
cool.
His son brought some, like he made biltong. And I'm like, what is this? He's like, it's just this. It's not like American beef jerky.
Yeah, no, it's next level, right? It's like
it's really, really good.
So good, yeah. And then their quality is really good. I got introduced to it when we were in South Africa, and then my friend, the one who had terminal leukemia, he's from South Africa. That's where he moved from. So they took us there for like 3 weeks, and we ate it all the time. We had different animals too, which was really good. And then he makes it, now that he lives in Texas and he has his own like property and stuff, he makes it and he brings it to our events, and he'll just come with in a silicone bag, start replacing plastic with silicone. He brought this thing with big old chunk. And I was like, I think I ate that and I flew for 11 hours that day. And that's all I had.
Dude, it fills you up so much, and
Yeah.
it tastes so good. I gotta
sure.
get me some biltongs, so
Okay.
definitely send me that link.
Okay, we'll do. Yeah.
Cool. Let me close this out, and then hang tight. Let me make sure that everything gets uploaded from both of our ends.
You got it.
Everybody, thank you for listening. Check out all those links, man. Check Tate and Cameron. These guys are studs, man. They're rock stars. I cannot recommend them enough. And whatever they're doing, I fully support. They're good dudes. They're good Christian men. They practice what they preach. So if you're curious, go check them out. You got my signature. I need your signature on the wall, by the way.
Get it to you.
As always, rate and review the podcast. Go check out their podcast, beregenerated.com. Wherever you listen wherever you listen to watch. Try not to watch it on YouTube though. Like, they're commies. They hate you. They hate me.
Spotify,
So,
or you can subscribe to our
also Rumble,
Substack, and we give you
preferably Twitter.
bonus stuff. Yeah, Twitter.
Yeah. There you go. Do that. Substack. Also, go to regularmanstuff.com. Check out all the mean, offensive tweets and t-shirts and mugs and stuff. Just don't wear it to church. You might get a couple weird eyes, weird looks. While you're there, you can also sign up to be on the Regular Man Wall, $5 a month. Until next time, be on alert, stand firm in the faith, act like men, and be strong. Thank you for listening. Cameron, that was great, dude.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there at the end.